Osprey Creative Audio presents Command, Henry V, written by Marcus Cowper, and read for you by Jamie Glover. Introduction. The Battle of Agincourt is a prominent part of the English national myth. Immortalised in Shakespeare's Henry V, it has been a national rallying point over the centuries, while its victor, Henry V, has been widely claimed as the greatest medieval monarch, the very epitome of medieval kingship. His military successes in France, built upon his experiences in suppressing the Welsh and aristocratic revolts of his father's reign, show him to be a military commander of the first order, well skilled in the tactics, strategies, and logistical and personal skills required by a medieval commander to undertake a war of conquest. His reputation as a king was acknowledged by his contemporaries, both in England and throughout Europe, and it is a reputation that has survived through to the present day largely intact. The unassailable Henry, as shown by Shakespeare, is not the true historical reality. Henry's grip on the throne of England, let alone France, was not secure in 1413. His father had usurped the rightful king, Richard II, in 1399, and had been forced to deal with numerous uprisings against his rule during the first decade of the 15th century. Henry, too, had to deal with both popular and aristocratic uprisings until his conquests made his position secure. These conquests in France, from 1415 up to his death in 1422, were concerned with reclaiming what he saw as his lost inheritance, the Angevin lands in France that had been held by the monarchs of England in the subsidiary roles as great magnates of France. The Duchy of Normandy formed the oldest part of this inheritance, as William the Conqueror was Duke of Normandy before becoming King of England following the Norman Conquest in 1066. The marriage of Henry II to Eleanor of Aquitaine brought the enormous possessions of the Duchy of Aquitaine into the hands of the English monarchy, and at its largest extent, the Angevin Empire covered almost all of western France, with the exception of Brittany, Normandy, Aquitaine, Anjou, Maine, Touraine, and Poitou. The vast majority of these territories were lost during the conflict between King John of England and Philip II of France at the end of the 12th and beginning of the 13th centuries, losing Normandy by 1204. The only territory in France left to the English king was the Duchy of Aquitaine, also known as Gascony or Guyenne, based around the port of Bordeaux. This reduced territory still had the power to cause international conflict, as it highlighted the duality of the King of England's position as a sovereign in his own country, but also a vassal of the King of France in his role as Duke of Aquitaine. Whenever either the King of England or France changed, the King of England was required to pay homage to the King of France for his French territories, something confirmed by the Treaty of Paris in 1259 between Henry III and Louis IX, when the English king surrendered his rights to the lost territories in return for confirmation of the Duchy of Aquitaine. The King of England therefore paid homage for his French territories in 1273, 1285, 1303, 1308, 1320 and 1325, though conflict also broke out over the issue in 1294 and 1324, following French confiscation of the duchy during periods of feudal conflict. In 1337, conflict broke out once more, and Philip VI of France declared that Edward III was a disobedient vassal and confiscated the duchy. However, this time the English response was different. Edward III claimed the throne of France through his grandfather, Philip IV, launching the 100 Years' War. It was this claim that Henry V would use to legitimize his program of conquest in Normandy, and he was the closest of all the English monarchs to achieving the realization of that claim through the Treaty of Troyes of 1420 that disinherited the Dauphin and made Henry the heir to the throne of France. Prior to this, the English monarchy had used the claim to the throne of France more as a bargaining piece to extend their territorial claims, and Edward III was willing to drop using the title following the Treaty of Bretigny, which came out of the English victories at Crécy, 1346, and Poitiers, 1356, the latter of which had seen the capture of the French king, John II. This treaty gave Edward III Aquitaine, Poitou, Ponthieu, and the newly captured territory around Calais in full sovereignty, in return for an abandonment of the English claims to the French throne, Normandy, Anjou, and Maine. However, this treaty rapidly broke down, and war was resumed in 1369. Henry's claims and campaigns can be seen, at least initially, as being part of this process. However, the scale of his successes and the divided nature of the French leadership, particularly following the murder of John the Fearless of Normandy in 1419, gave him the opportunity to push further than any English king before him and make